Every revealed feature in Minecraft 1.21 is now available in snapshots and betas. These features are still able to change, but at this point those changes are much less likely, and so the question is how good are the 1.21 features, and by virtue the entire update. I'll rate every single individual feature out of 5, and then by the end of the video that will give us an overall update score, and in the meantime you can learn about every feature found inside of 1.21 so far. Starting with the Breeze, which is a fresh new hostile mob design, breaking the trend of Minecraft updates having far more friends than foes. Being a hostile mob is not what makes the Breeze unique though, instead its air blast attacks and inability to be hit by arrows is what leads to a interesting and unique combat scenario, before even considering that it will activate redstone with these attacks, meaning that the room design is specifically set up around making it a very dynamic fight. I do have to say the Breeze is a breath of fresh air as far as Minecraft mobs are concerned, and you would think being a mob rather than a block would inhibit potential creativity from this as part of the update, but you would be wrong, and I bet you haven't seen the Breeze launcher from GurgYT. At first you wonder why all of the Breeze attacks going into one place makes sense, but then the button is hit and all of a sudden you go flying into the air and you realize this is a great alternative to a TNT launcher that requires much fewer resources, and so this is a great example of just one of the many things that people have used the Breeze attack for. Being useful for redstone alongside being an interesting fight should already be great characteristics by themselves, but the Breeze adds in a wonderful way to Minecraft's lore and world building, because the Breeze is suspiciously like the Blaze. One is air and one is fire. They are both magical creatures that attack with their respective element, and so it leaves the door open for a potential earth elemental and water elemental in the future, something which is great on a lore level, but also wonderful because it adds to the world of Minecraft. And so now it's time to give it a score, but first I want to be clear on exactly how I'm going to come up with an arbitrary number out of 5. Obviously, until a full update is complete, you could argue that every feature in the update either works with or doesn't work with the rest of the update and Minecraft as a whole, but I will be trying to look at each individual feature to say, would the game be the same without it? Would anyone really care if it was removed? That would be a bad marking. Does the actual feature add to the creativity without being unnecessarily unfair or removing something from you? And most importantly, does it fit Minecraft in a realistic way? They could add a dolphin assault rifle to the game tomorrow, and although it might objectively be fun to shoot enemies with, it wouldn't feel like Minecraft when you're doing so, and so that is an important part of the scoring process alongside how well the feature is actually developed. And so with those characteristics in mind, I think the Breeze fits Minecraft while still expanding on the game. It gives you something new, which is a challenge, but without being annoyingly so, and most importantly, gives creative potential to how you solve the challenge of fighting him in his rooms, but also in how you make fun redstone contraptions. That makes him a 5 out of 5 as far as I am concerned, which seems like high praise, but it's the first of 2 mobs in this update. Let's not talk about that other guy just yet. Instead, let's mention the trial spawner, because the first true fear I had in Minecraft was when I encountered a spider spawner for the first time. It was 2010, my friend had just gotten me into Minecraft and he'd fallen asleep and I was playing, and I slowly found these creepy spider noises and eventually found a block which was spawning more and more of them. Nowadays, the dungeon and its spawner are aging relics of a Minecraft which came out before the Nintendo 3DS, and so trial spawners attempt to recreate that challenge of a monster spawner, but for a multiplayer experience. They succeed, and even alone, the variety you'll find in one room of the trial chambers leads to scary and sometimes overwhelming situations, the perfect fit for something like this. And unlike a monster spawner, they don't infinitely spawn mobs, but instead pop out a reward after you're done, meaning that you actually feel like you're clearing something and the rewards are entirely worth it. This is a great addition, and if you're multiplayer focused, this is a 5 out of 5. However, in my personal experience, I would say that variety does seem to be lacking, because in a given trial spawner, you always have the same 3 types of spawners, one ranged, one small, one big, and even across all of the ones in your world, there's only 10 different mobs that can spawn here, and every ranged mob is just a skeleton variant, and so ultimately, I think there is a bit lacking on that. And also, when the trial spawner is done, there is a cooldown timer until it starts again, but it's not entirely clear when that's going to be. I think for some people, they're going to assume it's going to be, done forever, and they're going to be tricked by this, and for some others, they're going to be waiting around for far too long, not knowing when they can fight this and get its great rewards again. And so to me, that is what limits the trial spawner and makes it a 4 out of 5, a great feature, one of the best, but still in need of some improvements. On the subject of a block that needs improvement, the crafter is a great example of an idea that changes the world and blows redstoners' minds and opens up all possibilities when it's announced and revealed, but right now, I've yet to see a really compelling reason to use it besides fun. Sure, there are all sorts of great ways ways that people have implemented it, and I would keep one stocked in my world to keep valueless drops like nuggets turned into bars, but I'm not convinced that I would use one outside of those specific farms or furnace situations, because how often do you need to automate crafting compared to smelting or anything else which we currently can? Part of this is down to Mojang and the way that they implemented it in terms of tick delays. They could make it a valuable redstone block even outside of its direct functionality, and they could work with the community to see exactly what's needed from it, but personally I look at this and I see a slightly awkward crafting experience which is done automatically despite that rarely being all too needed. And so again, I would say this is a 3 out of 5. This is not a bad block. I am excited to see it. I think it's fun and it might lead to that killer functionality, but the fact is I've seen more interesting things done with the breeze. By the way, that wasn't the only design. I've seen someone use it to make randomness, and the fact is to say the breeze seems to have just as much creativity as the crafter, which is a bad sign in an update which is meant to be about tinkering, which only has one block which does so. So 3 out of 5 is the official ranking I'm giving here. However, when it comes to the Tuff bricks, I think I have something more positive to say, because the Tuff blocks were added to Minecraft as one big set, and so I'll review them as one big set, because I don't think it makes sense to review a polished Tuff block and then say Tuff brick stairs, but then Tuff brick walls are entirely separate. No, there is a big variety of Tuff blocks that were all added in this update, because prior to 1.21, the only type of tuff that you can find is tuff that generates by itself in the wall, i.e. that is to say regular old tuff. Very boring, very bland, and almost an obstacle that you would find in the ground with no other redeeming features. This was added in the Caves and Cliffs update, and at the time it was an exception to Minecraft's rule about making sure that every single block that was a crafted stone material could have stairs and indeed could have slabs and walls. And so this was odd because looking at all of these other types of blocks, they all actually had this exact same thing. However, they finally decided to unbreak that rule in this update, and what we're left with are a beautiful block set. I mean, they made this block set specifically so they could make a trial chamber. Here is my off-brand version, hope you like it. But honestly, they work so well. I am going to want to use Tuff bricks in my world, and that's before considering the fact that they make great stairs and walls. You can use polished Tuff bricks as just something to build a house out of, which would be very unique. But even better than all of these things are the chiseled Tuff bricks. This is chiseled Tuff. It looks kind of fun in my opinion. And this is the chiseled regular, sorry, that was the chiseled Tuff bricks. This is chiseled Tuff. And honestly, they are both incredible blocks. I love the fact that the breeze is alluded to with the chiseled Tuff. I think the fact that the regular, Tuff bricks are alluding to something else entirely is something kind of fun. What is it referencing? The trial chambers more broadly, or what is it? Every chiseled block has something referenced on there. And so what is this? Is it the trial chambers? You tell me your theories. But I love the fact that they give a little bit of theory crafting while also just giving a really good block set. There is only a few blocks here, a dozen or so, but Tuff bricks will work really well when making gradients between black stone, deep slate, and regular stone. I think the Tuff chiseled stuff will make really fun floorings. These are the two ideas that I built, but I'm sure there are trillions of ways that you can tile this, and ultimately I think this is a great feature, and I think that it's an easy 5 out of 5 because you can never hate Tuff bricks. Being able to get all that tuff that you're gathering anyway and turning it into something valuable is great, and the fact that it looks really nice and creates a new set of blocks means that even the least artistic builder can do something great with it. And the only question this raises is why wasn't this in the game to begin with? If anything, this looks like a lazy holdover from 1.18 that they probably should have added at the time but couldn't for some reason. Tuff bricks made sense within the logic of the game, and so why don't we have them? And so also, why don't we have calcite bricks and polished calcite and all of these other blocks which exist in the game right now? If Minecraft is working on making sure that all of their features are quality and consistent, then missing out on the quality and consistency is something which feels very odd. Anyway, I'll talk to you more about quality and consistency after we talk about the Armadillo, because let me tell you, the eyes on my guy might enrage, but personally I don't engage because I think the design is more than fine, and keep in mind that it's obviously going to change. This is an important thing to say about the Armadillo. It is a really interesting new passive mob that is going to enrage the community almost by default because it wasn't the one they voted for. This was the closest mob vote we've had in a very long time, with about 60% of players voting for something other than the most popular option. Because they didn't do a multiple round round system, many people feel as though they got the worst option because of some other group of players, and so I think there is a very valid reason for feeling a bit of resentment, but I don't think we should take it out on the cute little armadillo. Even though the design is the most likely to change out of any mob because it is its separate category, it might not even be included in 1.21 if things get bad enough. I think that if you look at this and judge it by the standards of Minecraft's passive mob, which we get in every single update, I think he's exactly fine. That could be a case of lowering your expectations, but in terms of the two mobs in this update, he's not the better of the two, that's for sure, but I think if you actually look at how it's implemented, the only issue I have is that it uses the most durability for a single item we've ever had in Minecraft. Why would they work on a brush and then immediately give it second use, a thing which destroys it in 6 single uses? It seems ridiculous, especially given you need 7 to get wolf armor. It feels very contrived, and I think it's something that could be worked on, but right now the armadillo is an okay passive mob, in the same way that no one hates a panda, no one hates a llama, no one hates a dolphin or a turtle. It's just there, and so I would be remiss to give it a 5, but I also think it would be ridiculous to give this a 1, because what more can they realistically do besides change the design slightly or allow you to kill it? These would both be great options that could bring it up to a 4, but as far as I'm concerned, right now the armadillo is a 3. It's okay. Speaking of okay, the wolf armor is that. If you really want to protect your wolf, you might say, but you'd be wrong. The wolf armor is the worst part of this update. I do have to say, the armadillo coming into the game is not my preferred option from the 3 choices we had. I think that more block reach and faster boats are both objectively more useful. However, I am someone who tries to see the best in things, and so let me tell you the best I can see from the wolf armor. Oh, it's really good because it gives value to the armadillo, and the armadillo isn't very useful without the wolf armor, so the wolf armor's good because it gives use to the armadillo, which is only useful because of the wolf armor, and the wolf armor itself might not be very good at protecting your wolves. As someone who has desperately tried to be an optimist on this, I've used wolf armor multiple times. I did a whole stream where I specifically dedicated to trying to find the niche great uses for it, but any situation where things actually get scary, bring them to a graveyard full of skeletons, and you will leave with no dogs, armor or not. Bring them into a situation where there's any amount of water and the dogs will drown, and the armor doesn't even help them in that. The same is true for falling into lava or fire or anything else. Lots of things go straight through armor, and even though they brag that it's diamond quality, truth be told, diamond horse armor quality, that is to say, not true diamond armor quality, but even though it's diamond horse armor quality, that still isn't a very big brag. The wolf armor does not do much for your wolf, and although it is fun that you can add it and then later you can remove it, I do think that ultimately this is a aesthetic feature. It might have a functional use, and in theory you might be able to make use of that functional use if you really try your best, but I do not believe that this is actually a perfectly functional addition to the game. This isn't something that you would go out of your way to find if you found out it exists. It's something you put on your wolf to show that he's a combat wolf, and so we have an aesthetic feature that was added to justify another aesthetic feature. Both of these features justify each other, and I think the armadillo could get some great use out of its scutes, but the wolf armor is not that. This is the most worthless feature they've added to Minecraft in a very long time, and because it's a mob vote option, they don't even have much room to change it. I feel Mojang on this one, but that doesn't mean that I'm letting them off for this. This is a 1 out of 5. If there is a 1 out of 5 feature in any Minecraft update, go back for a while and it takes you a long time before you find something as absolutely worthless as wolf armor. It can't be dyed, it has no variance, it looks questionable, and questionable is me being nice. I don't think there is anything I can say besides why, Mojang? Why? Speaking of why Mojang, many people would ask, why did Mojang add the copper back in 1.17 if it was going to take years until it was actually useful? And I don't have an answer to that, but what I can say is, wow, new copper, isn't it great? We'll be addressing this as one big category. Even though there are so many blocks, they really split into 3 basic sections. There are the copper doors and trapdoors, there are the other new blocks, and then there are the copper bulbs. And boy, are the copper bulbs controversial. So instead we'll start with the doors and the trapdoors. These blocks look fine and and they work like wood, which is unexpected. They're made from metal, so most people would have expected, especially given how copper is meant to be the electricity, carrying thing of the game, that obviously copper would work like iron, but no, copper works like wood, except it's incredibly expensive. The cost of making these doors, and especially these trapdoors, is so ridiculous that I think many people won't bother, but if you did want a door and you're willing to break down a trial chamber to get one, I think they're fine looking blocks, maybe even good looking blocks, as good as you could make a copper door and trapdoor, although I'd question why they need to exist in the first place. With the chiseled copper, I'm a fan. As for this other block, I would have to say it's absolutely great. I do think there are missed potentials with these, but in their current form, they are brand new ways to use a block that you probably have too much of and you're not too sure what to do, so that is good use in my opinion. The copper bulb is also really, really genius. I will not be addressing the redstone community's concerns, but I do think this is a classic case of Mojang delivering something the community really wants and then going back and saying, nope, that was an accident. We swear when you liked it, you were wrong and you should have liked it the way it is now because this is the intended functionality. Personally, I don't have a horse in that race. I wasn't going to use the zero tick functionality of the copper bulb. I like the form which it takes right now. The fact that it holds a redstone charge on or off makes it a new redstone block, and even as a beginner, you can appreciate how that works. It's kind of like the crafter, in my opinion, of like, yeah, it's fun to play around with, and so you could never say it was a 0 out of 5, but to my eyes, this has a lot more endgame use, and even as a casual player, you can appreciate the copper bulb in its current form. I would have to say that the copper doors and trapdoors need some work, the copper grate would benefit from some as well, and the copper bulb is a classic case of should Mojang listen to the community, or should they focus on their vision for the game? I don't have a particular horse in that race, and so instead I can say these are a 4 out of 5 category. They could be a 5 out of 5 if they fix all of those minor issues, but even if they came into the game right now in their current form, I would still say they're great. And then I would be wrong about most of the blocks because only this one's great. Anyway, speaking of things that are fun, the trial chambers is the big final feature to review in this update, and perhaps it is the biggest feature that Minecraft has added for a very long time. I would say the closest equivalent that you can draw is the ancient city, and honestly, that is high praise when Minecraft's biggest structure ever is comparable to something they've added just as part of 1.21. The variety in the chambers you'll find in this place is incredibly fun and makes each one feel different to the last, without it being like the Bastion where you learn 4 different main routes. There are going to be lots of different random variables which make this a genuinely fun challenge, whether you're going in for the first time, whether you're going in for the 5th time with friends. Every single time you will have fun little challenges and weird loot that makes you feel like you actually discovered something, and I really love that personally. For a feature to have been available to play with in previews for a couple of months now, and for me not to already say that I know everything in there perfectly, is something which I think is incredibly high praise, and mix in the trial spawners and the random mix of mobs, mix in the weird ways they can generate, and all of a sudden we've gone from a feature which is good to a feature which is great. Personally, the trial chambers is what gets me excited about Minecraft 1.21, and if I was to say entirely frankly, this feature alone makes the update and proves the ambition of Mojang in a way that the last couple of updates have left some people questioning, and I am very excited to see what happens with the rest of it. I will be talking a little bit about the comparison to 1.20 and indeed what the name and theme of this update will be, but first things first, this is a 5 out of 5 and we'll total up those scores right after I compare to 1.20, because we have the same number of mobs as that update. We have a mob vote winner and then one other, as well as having a brand new mechanic, and honestly, when you look at that combined, you might say that it's a very similar sized update, but right now I would say 1.20 and 1.21 are about comparable in quality, with a solid 5 months to go, potentially 6 even, for Minecraft 1.21's development. Usually they don't announce the theme, the name, and some of the features of the update until early in the year in which it's actually releasing, which is what gets me incredibly excited, because as you might already know, we know the theme of 1.21, but we don't know the name. So despite revealing all of the features so far, and indeed being known as the
Combat Adventures and Tinkering
update, That's not the name, and it hasn't been revealed yet. There's lots left that can come, and I'm excited to see it. I do think that the Combat and Tinkering update is a very fun name. I've seen a lot of community sentiment around Trials and Tiles, and I think that's very fun. But yeah, we are going to be getting a big reveal on this later, but all we know for now is that the next features they add will be themed around combat adventures or tinkering. Personally, I think that combat adventurers really does need to mean they work on either a brand new weapon of some form, or to be more ambitious, a combat overhaul. Java and Bedrock have all sorts of limitations that they've put onto these games so that they can be more similar to each other, and yet they have such vastly different combat, which means that to this day, a Java player switching to Bedrock will be confused as to why they can't use their offhand, and a Bedrock player switching to Java will hit mobs and then not deal any damage because of no cooldown. They need to work on a better system for both games, and ideally that needs to improve the combat for both. That is something they have the perfect opportunity to do right now, because no one knows what they're going to come out with. If they had a big combat overhaul and they made it worthwhile, this update would be the time to do it, because if not now, then when? And so I think that new combat seems all but guaranteed. But finally, let's come back to 1.21. If there were no brand new features, if we just had the update so far, what would be the overall ranking of the update? Well, if you take the 8 major features in this update, as I've grouped them in this video, you get 40 stars of potential, i.e. if every single feature was 5 stars, 40 out of 40 would be the best possibility. And if we look individually at each of these scores, you can see that the overall total is actually 30 out of 40. Or to simplify that fraction back down to 5 stars, 3.75 out of 5. That makes it a great update, but it also leaves some room for improvements. I think that the Wolf Farmer is obviously one of the biggest spaces for this, but the Armadillo, the Crafter, and the Copper Blocks as a whole could really do with some minor improvements, and add onto that some brand new features which tie the update together, which give it a theme, and we might be on for a reversal of course in terms of Mojang slowly reducing the scope of updates, something which I think would be hugely positive and could signal a final going away of the COVID era, because ultimately that is what is blamed many times over for the sacrificing and the splitting of updates since then. So will there be a big improvement or not? That is something only Mojang gets to decide, but for now I will say I'm excited, and if you're excited, subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos like this where I cover the latest and greatest in Minecraft updates. And I moved the subscribe pitch to the end of the video. For some reason, as a YouTuber, if you don't tell people to subscribe, they don't realize it's a feature on the YouTube site. But if not enough people subscribe when I put it at the end, then I put it at the beginning in the first minute or so. So if you support that, then I don't know, do whatever you feel like. But what I will say is thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in 2024 for the updates that Minecraft brings then. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.